Jake Morrison walked into the huge meeting room on the space station called Zenith 7. His boots made clicking sounds on the metal floor. Around him stood creatures from 40 different worlds. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like giant insects. Jake had never seen anything like this before. He was a lieutenant in the military back on Earth. Now he stood among aliens who were much bigger and stronger than him. His heart beat fast, but he kept his face calm. This was what he had trained for all his life. A massive reptile creature stepped forward. His name was Commander Velkoth. He was from a race called the Drakari. His skin was covered in blue and green scales that shimmered under the lights. He was at least 8 feet tall. When he spoke, a small device on his collar translated his words into English. "Your species wants to join our military," the commander said. His voice was deep and rumbling. "But humans are weak. You break too easily. You are too slow. Your bodies cannot handle what we need from soldiers." Jake stood very still. He had heard these words many times during the tests on Earth. Every alien race seemed to think humans were not good enough. They looked at human bodies and saw only weakness. 2 other humans stood beside Jake. Amy Parker was a doctor from Denver. She specialized in treating wounded soldiers. Ben Cole was from Texas. He had spent 10 years in special operations doing dangerous missions that most people never heard about. These 3 were chosen from over 10 million people who applied from Earth. The commander touched a button and a picture appeared in the air between them. It showed a planet with red skies and sharp mountains. Strange plants grew in twisted shapes across the ground. "This planet is called Carvos 9, Velkoth explained. "You will train there for 6 months. The conditions are very hard. Almost half of the soldiers who go there do not survive the training." Amy's eyes went wide for just a moment. Ben crossed his arms but showed no emotion on his face. Jake kept looking straight ahead. "You will train with soldiers from other races," the commander continued. "The Thraken have armor on their bodies like tanks. The Vorn can grow back arms and legs if they lose them. The Stellari are 8 times stronger than you. They can lift things you cannot even push." Jake took a breath and spoke clearly. "Commander, with respect, humans did not come here to be told what we cannot do. We came to show you what we can do." Strange clicking and hissing sounds came from the alien soldiers around them. They were laughing. One creature that looked like a giant insect moved its mouth parts in a way that seemed amused. These aliens thought humans were funny for believing they could succeed. Velkoth stared at Jake for a long moment. His reptile eyes were hard to read. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well, Lieutenant Morrison. You will get your chance to prove yourself. Training starts tomorrow at sunrise. I suggest you rest tonight. It will be the last easy night you have for a long time." The meeting ended. The 3 humans walked down the long corridors of the space station. Around them, groups of alien soldiers moved past. Most of them were huge. Their bodies had natural weapons like claws, spikes, and thick armor. Next to them, the humans looked small and fragile. "Do you really think we can do this?" Amy asked quietly. Her voice was worried but determined. Ben watched as a massive 6-armed creature walked by carrying equipment that would take 3 humans to lift. "We have to," he said simply. "If we fail, Earth does not get another chance. This is it for humanity." Jake understood what Ben meant. The galaxy was full of alien races who had formed a military alliance. They protected each other from threats and worked together. Earth wanted to join this alliance. But first, humans had to prove they could fight alongside these powerful beings. The 3 humans reached their sleeping quarters. The rooms were designed for larger beings, so everything looked too big. The beds were massive. The doors were higher than they needed to be. Even the chairs seemed made for giants. Jake sat on his bed and looked at his hands. They were normal human hands. Not claws. Not covered in armor. Just skin and bone. He thought about all the creatures he had seen today. Any one of them could probably tear him apart without trying hard. But humans had something else. Throughout history, humans had survived in every environment on Earth. Deserts, ice fields, jungles, mountains. Humans were not the strongest animal on Earth, but they had become the dominant species. They did it by being smart, by working together, and by never giving up. There was a knock on his door. Amy and Ben came in. They sat down, and for a moment nobody spoke. Finally, Amy broke the silence. "My grandmother told me something before I left Earth. She said humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. We are still here because we adapt. We find ways to survive when everything says we should not. Ben nodded. In special operations, they taught us that strength is not everything. Sometimes the smaller, weaker soldier wins because they think differently. They use strategy instead of just force. Jake stood up and looked at his two companions. We are going into this training program knowing we are weaker. That gives us an advantage they do not expect. They will underestimate us. They think we will fail. So when we succeed, it will surprise everyone. The three of them made a silent agreement. They would work harder than anyone else. They would help each other. They would prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. That night, Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about the training ahead. 6 months on a hostile planet. A 47% death rate. He thought about all the people back on Earth who were watching and hoping. Billions of humans were counting on 3 people to represent the entire species. If Jake, Amy, and Ben failed, humanity would be seen as too weak to join the galactic community. Earth would remain isolated, alone in a universe full of other civilizations, but if they succeeded, everything would change. Jake finally fell asleep just before dawn. His last thought was simple and clear. Survive or perish. There was no middle ground. The training would either break them or make them stronger. Tomorrow they would find out which it would be. In the morning, sirens woke all the recruits. Jake jumped out of bed and put on his uniform. It was specially made for the harsh conditions on Carvos 9. The fabric was tough and would protect him from the planet's environment. He met Amy and Ben outside. They all looked nervous but ready. Around them, alien soldiers were also preparing. Some were doing warm-up exercises that looked impossible for humans to copy. Others were checking their equipment with multiple arms or tentacles. A transport ship waited to take them to Carvos 9. As Jake walked up the ramp, he took one last look at the space station. This was the last moment of safety they would have for 6 months. Commander Velkoth stood at the entrance to the ship. He watched each recruit board. When Jake passed him, the commander spoke quietly. "Human, you have courage to attempt this, but courage alone will not be enough. You will need to be stronger than you have ever been." Jake met the commander's eyes. "Then we will become stronger, sir. Whatever it takes." The ship lifted off, carrying them toward Carvos 9. Through the windows, Jake could see the planet growing larger. The red skies looked angry and dangerous. The training was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same. The first week on Carvos 9 almost killed them all. The moment Jake stepped off the transport ship, he felt the difference. The air was heavier here. Each breath burned his throat a little. His body felt wrong, like someone had strapped weights to every part of him. The planet had stronger gravity than Earth. Everything was harder to do. The sky was red just like in the pictures, but standing under it was different. The color made everything look strange and hostile. The ground was covered in sharp rocks. Strange plants with thorns grew everywhere. This planet did not want them here. A massive alien stepped forward. He had 4 arms and looked like he was made of solid muscle. His name was Sergeant Instructor Krasix. He was from a race called the Stellari. He looked at the assembled recruits with cold eyes. "You will run 20 kilometers," he announced. "Full combat gear. You have 2 hours. Begin now." The alien soldiers took off running. They moved fast despite carrying heavy packs and weapons. Their strong bodies handled the difficult terrain easily. Jake, Amy, and Ben started running too, but immediately they felt the difference. The gravity made every step feel like lifting a boulder. The thin air made breathing painful. Jake's pack felt like it weighed twice what it should. His legs burned after just 1 kilometer. Around him, the alien recruits were barely breathing hard. 2 hours later, the alien soldiers finished the run. They stood at the finish line waiting. Jake, Amy, and Ben arrived 30 minutes after everyone else. Jake's legs were shaking. Amy had gone pale and looked sick. Ben was coughing badly. Krasix walked up to them. "You are slow. You are weak. You will not survive real combat. The galactic military has no use for soldiers who cannot keep up with everyone else." Jake wanted to argue, but he could not speak. His lungs hurt too much. Beside him, Amy bent over trying not to vomit. Ben wiped blood from his mouth, but none of them quit. They stayed standing. The obstacle course came next. There were walls 3 times as tall as Jake, pits filled with mud that could burn skin, ropes hanging over deep holes. The alien recruits climbed and jumped easily. They were built for this kind of challenge. The humans struggled with every obstacle. When Ben could not climb a wall because his arms were not strong enough, he used his rifle strap like a rope. He threw it over the top and pulled himself up slowly. It took 3 times as long, but he got over. Amy found a pressure plate that needed weight to activate. She was too light to make it work, so she piled her equipment on it along with her body weight. She solved the problem by thinking differently. Jake faced a gap that was too wide to jump. The alien soldiers just leaped across easily with their powerful legs. Jake studied the gap, then ran as fast as he could and jumped at an angle. He barely caught the edge and had to pull himself up. His muscles screamed, but he made it. The alien instructors watched with confusion. These humans were not winning by being stronger or faster. They were winning by being creative. They adapted to each challenge. They found solutions that the aliens never thought of. Hand-to-hand combat training came later that week. Jake was paired against an alien named Zekthar. He was from the Thraken race. He looked like a giant insect with hard armor covering his body. He stood 8 feet tall. The match lasted 4 seconds. Zekthar grabbed Jake and threw him to the ground so hard it knocked the wind out of him. Jake could not move. He was completely helpless. The other recruits made clicking and hissing sounds. They were laughing at the weak human, but Jake paid attention. He watched how Zekthar moved. He studied where the joints in the armor were. He noticed how the alien distributed his weight. The next time they fought, Jake lasted 8 seconds, then 15 seconds. By the end of the week, he could last 30 seconds. He was not winning by being stronger. He was learning patterns. He found tiny weaknesses in his opponent's style. He exploited every small advantage. One evening, Zekthar approached Jake after training. The huge insect warrior tilted his triangular head in a gesture that might have been respect. "You are clever, human. You learn fast. Most species use their natural strengths. You have no natural strengths, but you improve every day. This is interesting." Jake wiped blood from his cut lip and smiled. "On Earth, we call it necessity. When you are the underdog, you either get creative or you die." The training got harder. They practiced with alien weapons that felt strange in human hands. They learned to survive in toxic environments. They ran tactical simulations against enemy forces. The 3 humans started working as a team. Amy's medical training helped during emergency drills. She could treat wounded soldiers from different species. She figured out how to adapt human medical techniques to work on alien bodies. Ben's special operations background made him good at sneaking around. He could move quietly and scout ahead. The alien soldiers were stronger, but Ben was better at not being seen. Jake had a talent for strategy. He could look at a problem and find solutions that others missed. He thought about battles like chess games, always planning several moves ahead. 3 weeks into training, something terrible happened during a night exercise. A massive creature attacked the camp. It was native to Carvos 9. The beast stood 20 feet tall with 6 legs. Its skin was so tough that energy weapons barely hurt it. The creature had smelled their food and wandered into camp looking for a meal. The alien recruits panicked. All their training was forgotten. They ran in different directions, screaming. Even the instructors seemed surprised by how fast and aggressive the creature was. Jake's mind went clear. He had trained for situations like this on Earth. Humans had been hunting dangerous animals for thousands of years. "Ben, Amy, with me," he shouted. Standard predator protocol. They moved together like they had practiced many times. Ben fired his weapon at the creature, not trying to kill it, just getting its attention. The beast turned and focused its rage on Ben. Amy moved to the side and started shooting at the creature's leg joints. She was not trying to hurt it badly. She was trying to slow it down and direct where it went. Jake calculated the beast's movements. He watched its momentum and speed. He directed Ben's movements, guiding the creature toward a steep cliff at the edge of camp. The creature charged at Ben with incredible speed. Ben ran straight toward the cliff edge. At the last possible second, he dove to the side. The beast could not stop. It ran right over the edge and fell into the darkness below. Silence filled the camp. Everyone stared at the 3 humans. Commander Velkoth came out of his shelter. His reptilian eyes were wide with surprise. That was a Carvosian alpha predator, fully grown. Trained soldiers have died fighting those creatures. Jake put his weapon away. His hands were shaking from adrenaline, but his voice was steady. "On Earth, Commander, our ancestors learned to hunt woolly mammoths with sharpened sticks. We learned to kill creatures much bigger and stronger than us. Adaptation is what humans do best. It is how we survived." That night, something changed in the camp. The alien recruits started looking at the humans differently. They were not just weak creatures anymore. They were survivors who knew how to fight smart instead of just fighting strong. The next morning, training continued. But now some of the alien soldiers started asking the humans questions. How did you think of that tactic? Why did you move that way? Can you teach us? Jake, Amy, and Ben were no longer alone. They were becoming part of the team. And slowly they were changing how everyone thought about what it meant to be a soldier. Month 3 brought a new kind of test. This one was not about physical strength. It was about the mind. The instructors separated all the recruits. Each one was placed alone in a special room. These rooms were designed to test mental strength. They used sensory deprivation, which meant taking away all normal sights, sounds, and feelings. The alien recruits had evolved mental abilities that helped them. Some races had group consciousness, meaning they could feel connected to others even when alone. They could handle isolation better because they were built for it. The humans had nothing like that. They were truly alone. Jake found himself in a white room with no features. There were no windows, no markings on the walls, nothing to look at. The walls seemed to move sometimes, getting closer and then farther away. He could not tell if this was real or if his mind was playing tricks on him. Time became meaningless. He could not tell if an hour had passed or a day. There was no way to know. The silence was complete and heavy. Sometimes he heard sounds, but he did not know if they were real or imagined. His training from Earth helped him survive. He started reciting poetry he had memorized as a child. He solved math problems in his head. He walked through memories of his hometown, remembering every street name and every building. When his mind started to break under the loneliness, he built mental structures to keep himself together. He imagined walking patrol routes. He counted things. He created conversations in his head with people he knew, anything to keep his mind working normally. In another room, Amy fought her own battle. She sang every song she could remember. When she ran out of songs, she made up new ones. She held imaginary conversations with her family back on Earth. She rehearsed what she would tell them when she got home. She visualized treating patients. She went through medical procedures step by step in her mind. She organized medical knowledge, reviewing everything she had ever learned. Her doctor training helped her stay organized even in chaos. Ben took a different approach. He had survived worse situations during his special operations training. He simply shut down his emotions and endured. He found a cold, calm place inside himself where nothing could touch him. He turned the isolation into meditation. 72 hours passed. One by one, the alien recruits gave up. They pressed the emergency button in their rooms, asking to be let out. The isolation was too much for them. Within 48 hours, every alien had quit the test. The 3 humans were the last ones remaining in their rooms. When they finally emerged, blinking in the normal light, the instructor stared at them with new respect. A strange, glowing being approached them. It was from a race called the Lumina Collective. This creature was the psychological evaluator. It studied the 3 humans with great interest. Your species is uniquely suited to isolation, the being said. Its voice sounded like music. Most intelligent races evolved as collective beings. They draw strength from being connected to others. Humans developed differently. You can function alone for long periods. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He was adjusting to normal sights and sounds again. Humans are social creatures too. We like being around others, but we learned to be alone when we had to be. Our survival depended on it. The tactical training got more complex after that. Mixed teams of different species had to work together on difficult missions. They faced scenarios designed by veteran combat officers. Ambushes, sieges, hostage situations, resource management under stress. In one simulation, Jake's team had to rescue civilians from a hostile city. They were outnumbered 5-1. The alien recruits wanted to fight their way through using superior firepower. They wanted to use their strength to win. Jake proposed something different. Let us not fight at all. Let us make them fight themselves. They spent 2 days just watching. They observed enemy patrol patterns. They identified who was in charge and where supplies came from. They found communication nodes. They learned everything about how the enemy operated. Then, instead of attacking, they caused chaos without firing a single shot. They contaminated the enemy water supply so soldiers got sick. They jammed communications so units could not talk to each other. They created false intelligence reports that sent patrols to the wrong places. When they finally moved to extract the civilians, the enemy forces were in complete disorder. Soldiers were running around chasing ghosts and fighting shadows. The rescue succeeded with 0 casualties on Jake's team. Instructor Krazix reviewed the simulation. He looked frustrated. This was supposed to be a combat exercise. You barely fought the enemy directly. Ben leaned back with a slight smile. You said extract the civilians. You did not say we had to fight. We completed the mission with maximum efficiency and minimum risk. That is what matters. This kind of thinking started spreading to other recruits. Zekthar began using tricks and deception in his combat style. A Vorn soldier named Thuxal started studying human guerrilla warfare. Even the instructors changed how they taught. The humans were not just surviving the program anymore. They were changing it. Month 4 brought the hardest physical test. It was called the Long March. 100 kilometers through hostile terrain with very few supplies. No support teams. No rescue if something went wrong. Finish the march or fail the entire program. 15 recruits started the march. 3 would not finish. At kilometer 70, Jake's body gave out. His legs simply stopped working. He had been hiding an infection for days, not wanting to seem weak. Now his body would not obey him anymore. He collapsed beside a boulder, his skin hot with fever. Amy and Ben found him there. They could have kept going. They could have finished the march on time. But they stopped. Leave me, Jake whispered. His voice was weak. You can still make it if you go now. Amy checked his pulse and temperature with shaking hands. She was exhausted too. Not happening, Lieutenant. Humans do not leave wounded soldiers behind. Ever. Ben made a stretcher from tree branches and their remaining gear. They took turns dragging Jake across the rocky ground. Their pace became incredibly slow. Other recruits passed them, shooting sympathetic looks but unable to help. Helping would mean they would fail too. Zekthar stopped when he reached them. The huge insect warrior looked down at the struggling humans. This is foolish. You will all fail rather than abandon one soldier. This makes no logical sense. Ben looked up at him. His face was covered in dirt and sweat. Then you do not understand humans. We are not always logical. We are stubborn. We succeed together or we fail together. There is no other way. Zekthar stood silent for a long moment. Then, without saying anything, he bent down and picked up Jake's stretcher with 2 of his forearms. If this is the human way, then I should learn it. Come, we finish this together. They crossed the finish line as the sun set on the 4th day. They were dead last. Commander Velkoth waited at the checkpoint. You took twice the allowed time. By regulation, this is failure. Jake, barely conscious, managed to speak. We completed the march. All objectives achieved. No one left behind. Velkoth looked at the 4 soldiers standing together. 3 humans and 1 alien, all exhausted but still standing. By my standards, this is failure. But by human standards, this is success. Very well, go to medical. You have earned your rest. That night in the medical bay, Jake, Amy, and Ben lay in their beds recovering. Through the window, they could see other recruits training. They had 2 months left. 2 more months of tests and challenges. But something had changed. They were no longer just 3 humans trying to survive. They had become part of something bigger. They had friends now, allies. And together they were proving that humanity had a place among the stars. Month 6 arrived with terrible news. The final test would not be a practice exercise. It would be real. A hostile alien species called the Krellian Swarm had attacked a mining colony in the outer reaches of space. 3,000 civilians lived on that colony. They were from many different species. They were trapped and needed help immediately. All the graduating recruits were being sent to rescue them. This was not training anymore. This was war. The transport ship arrived at the colony to find destruction everywhere. Buildings were burning. The main settlement had been destroyed. The Krellian forces had taken control of the central communications building. Without that building, they could not call for evacuation ships. Groups of civilians were hiding throughout the mining tunnels. They were cut off from each other and from any escape route. Commander Velkoth gave the briefing from orbit where his ship was safe. We have 12 hours before Krellian reinforcements arrive. Primary objective is to take back the communications building and call for evacuation support. Secondary objective is to find and extract as many civilians as possible. The senior officers started planning. Their plan was simple and direct. Send all their forces to attack the communications building. Use maximum firepower. Overwhelm the enemy with strength. This was standard military thinking. Jake raised his hand. Every head in the room turned to look at him. A human recruit daring to speak during a senior officer meeting. With respect, Commander, that approach will get many people killed. Both our soldiers and the civilians. Velkoth's reptilian eyes narrowed. Do you have a better idea, Lieutenant Morrison? Jake stepped forward to the tactical display. His fingers moved across the holographic map. The Krellians are expecting a frontal attack. They have concentrated all their forces at the main entrance. But mining colonies have service tunnels, maintenance shafts, emergency exits. We do not hit them where they are strong. We bypass them completely. He highlighted several points on the map. Small teams infiltrate through these access points. We secure the civilians first and get them to safe zones. Then we do not even attack the communications building directly. We cut their power, their communications, their supply lines. Make them think we are everywhere. Force them to abandon their position or spread too thin defending everything. One of the Stellari officers made a sound of disgust. This is cowardice. Real warriors face their enemies directly, not hide in tunnels like insects. Ben stood beside Jake. His voice was cold and hard. Real warriors complete the mission and bring everyone home alive. Your pride is not worth civilian lives. Commander Velkoth studied the tactical display in silence. The room waited. Finally, he nodded. We will try the human approach. Organize your teams, Lieutenant Morrison. You have operational command of this mission. The insertion went better than expected. Jake led a mixed team through a collapsed mining shaft. They emerged inside the colony's industrial sector without being detected. Amy's team secured a medical facility where injured civilians had locked themselves in. Ben took the smallest and quietest soldiers through the ventilation system. Zekathar had become Jake's second in command. His natural armor let him take point through dangerous areas. His growing tactical skills made him adapt quickly to changing situations. Over 6 hours, they evacuated 400 civilians. The Krellians, focused on defending the communications building, barely noticed the rescue happening around them. Then a problem arose. A group of 50 civilians, mostly children, were trapped in a collapsed section of the mining complex. The only way to reach them went directly past Krellian positions. A rescue would alert the enemy to their strategy. Jake made the decision without hesitation. We go in. Children first, always. Ben assembled a distraction team. They created a fake assault on the eastern side of the communications building. While the enemy focused there, Jake and Zekathar led the rescue unit through the dangerous corridor. Amy set up a field hospital at the extraction point, ready for casualties. The rescue turned into a battle. The Krellians realized what was happening and sent forces to stop them. Jake's team found themselves pinned down, using their own bodies to shield the fleeing children. A Krellian shock trooper broke through their defensive line. It was heading straight for a group of children huddled behind a barricade. Jake threw himself between them and the enemy. He took a plasma shot to the shoulder that spun him around and slammed him into the wall. Pain exploded through his body. He could not feel his left arm. Before the Krellian could fire again, Zekathar was there. The Thraken warrior moved with deadly precision. His combat style now used every trick he had learned from watching humans. He did not just use strength. He used strategy, creativity, and determination. The enemy soldier never had a chance. Jake, you are injured, Zekathar said. Fall back to medical treatment. Jake pushed himself to his feet, using the wall for support. His left arm hung useless at his side. Not until those kids are safe. We finished this together, remember? Zekathar made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. You humans are completely insane. It is inspiring. They extracted all 50 civilians with 20 minutes to spare. Amy worked frantically to patch up Jake's shoulder while coordinating medical care for the wounded. Ben's teams had disrupted enough Krellian operations that the enemy was retreating. They were abandoning their positions rather than face the unpredictable human tactics. As evacuation ships arrived from orbit, Commander Velkoth came down to the surface. He found Jake sitting on a pile of debris with his arm in a sling. Civilians from a dozen different species surrounded him, thanking him in many languages. The commander approached slowly. His expression was thoughtful. Our predictions said 68% of civilians would die in this scenario. You achieved 97% evacuation with 0 friendly casualties. Please explain how this was possible. Jake looked up at the tall reptilian. Exhaustion showed in every line of his face. Because humans do not measure success by how many enemies we killed, Commander. We measure it by how many people we saved. Velkoth was quiet for a moment. Then he did something Jake had never seen before. The commander bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect. I was wrong about your species, Lieutenant. Strength comes in many forms. Today you showed me a form I had never considered. The medical ship took Jake, Amy, and Ben back to Zenith 7. As they traveled through space, Jake looked out the window at the stars. 6 months ago, he had arrived here as a recruit that everyone expected to fail. Now he was returning as a soldier who had saved thousands of lives. Amy sat beside him, cleaning her medical equipment. Think they will let us graduate after that? Ben smiled from across the cabin. If they do not, I am going to be very annoyed. I did not survive 6 months of that training to get kicked out now. Jake laughed, then winced as the movement hurt his shoulder. We proved what we needed to prove. Humans can fight. We just fight differently than everyone else expected. Zekthar entered the cabin. The Thraken warrior had insisted on traveling with the humans rather than with his own species. I have sent a message to my people, he said. I told them about human tactics. Many want to learn. You have started something bigger than you realize. The ship continued toward the station. Graduation was in 3 days. After that, their lives would change forever. They would become officers in the Galactic Defense Initiative. They would represent humanity among the stars. But first, they needed to survive one more ceremony. And knowing their luck, Jake thought, even that would probably be challenging. The graduation ceremony took place in the same briefing room where Jake had first met Commander Velkoth 6 months ago. It felt like a lifetime had passed since that day. 9 recruits stood in formation, ready to receive their commissions as officers. 3 were human. 6 were aliens who had trained alongside them and learned the human way of thinking about warfare. The ceremony was attended by important people from across the galaxy. Representatives from the Galactic Council were there. Military leaders from dozens of species filled the room. A full media team recorded everything. News of the mining colony rescue had spread throughout known space. The humans who survived training that killed almost half of all recruits had become famous. Commander Velkoth stood before them all. His scales caught the light as he moved. He began to speak and the entire room fell silent. 6 months ago, I told Lieutenant Morrison that humans were below standard for military service. I said your physical capabilities were not good enough. I was completely wrong. Whispers ran through the crowd. It was rare for a commander to admit being wrong so publicly. Humans are indeed weaker than most species here. They are slower, more fragile. They lack natural armor, regeneration abilities, and many advantages others have. But they have something we did not understand, something we did not recognize as valuable. He turned to face Jake, Amy, and Ben directly. They refuse to accept defeat. They adapt to any challenge. They fight with creativity and determination that goes beyond simple physical ability. Most importantly, they understand that strength is not just individual power. It is also the bonds between soldiers and the willingness to sacrifice for others. Velkoth stepped forward and pinned the Galactic Defense Initiative badge on each human's uniform. The metal felt heavy, but right on Jake's chest. The training program has been changed. Human tactical methods will now be taught alongside traditional approaches. Adaptability, improvisation, and unconventional thinking are no longer seen as weaknesses. They are essential skills for modern warfare. Zekthar stepped forward from the ranks. His mandibles moved in the formal Thraken salute. I trained believing strength came from armor and power. These humans showed me that true strength comes from the mind and heart. They made me a better soldier, a better being. I am honored to serve alongside them. One by one, the other alien graduates spoke. They talked about lessons learned from their human teammates, flexibility instead of rigid rules, creative solutions to impossible problems, the importance of bringing everyone home safely. After the ceremony ended, Jake found himself on an observation deck. He looked out at the planet below, watching ships come and go. Amy joined him, her new officer badge shining on her uniform. Do you think we really changed anything? She asked. Jake watched ships representing dozens of species working together in space. We proved humanity belongs here, not because we are stronger or faster, but because we bring something unique, a different way of thinking, a different way of solving problems. That has value. Ben appeared with 3 glasses of purple liquid that bubbled strangely. Alien champagne, apparently. I think it might be toxic to humans, but at this point, what is one more challenge? They raised their glasses together. To survival, Amy said. To being stubborn, Ben added. To humanity, Jake finished. And to the future. 3 months passed quickly. Commander Velkoth submitted his final report to the Galactic Council. It read, "The human species is approved for full integration into Galactic Defense Initiative forces. Initial assessments of their physical limitations were based on incomplete understanding. Humans demonstrate exceptional tactical innovation, psychological resilience, and unit cohesion that compensate for physical disadvantages. Recommendation: establish formal exchange program for human tactical instructors. Their methods have proven valuable across multiple species and should be incorporated into standard training." Additional note: the phrase survive or perish has become popular among all recruits. Humans embrace it as philosophy. They do not simply survive. They refuse to die. This mindset may be their greatest contribution. Jake received his first real command assignment. He would lead a mixed species unit on frontier patrol. Among his crew was Zekthar as his executive officer. More and more soldiers wanted to learn the human approach to warfare. On his first day aboard his ship, Jake found a message waiting. It was from Commander Velkoth. "Lieutenant Morrison, you once told me that humanity came to prove what you could do, not to be told what you could not. You exceeded all expectations. The galaxy is fortunate to have humans among its defenders. Command your ship with honor. Show them what humanity means." Jake stood on the bridge of his ship looking out at space. Behind him, his crew worked with efficiency and creativity that had become the trademark of human-trained units. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy, not the fastest or most naturally gifted, but they were survivors, and that meant everything. The training program on Carvos 9 continued with modifications. New human recruits arrived from Earth regularly. The mortality rate dropped from 47% to 12%, as instructors adopted safer methods while keeping the challenges intense. Amy Parker became head of medical training. She taught alien doctors how to treat human patients and shared innovative trauma care techniques from Earth. Her survival rate for critical patients became legendary across the medical community. Ben Cole founded the Special Operations Training Division. Soldiers from across the galaxy came to learn guerrilla tactics, unconventional warfare, and how to win battles before they even started. Earth itself became a training location. The Galactic Defense Initiative built facilities in harsh environments around the planet. Aliens trained in deserts, jungles, frozen wastelands, and crowded cities. They learned that Earth had shaped humans through thousands of years of adaptation to hostile conditions. What aliens had seen as weakness, humans had turned into strength. Their fragility made them careful. Their limitations made them creative. Their mortality made them value every single life. 5 years after that first graduation, a human general addressed a new class of recruits. The audience was mixed with beings from 40 different worlds. You stand here today because you chose to survive when others would have given up. You adapted when adaptation seemed impossible. You learned that strength comes in many forms. The deadliest weapon in any arsenal is a mind that refuses to accept defeat. She paused, looking at the diverse faces before her. This is what humanity brought to the stars. Not superior technology, not overwhelming force, but the simple, stubborn refusal to give up. The willingness to attempt the impossible and make it possible through pure determination. Far away in space, Jake sat in his captain's chair. His mixed crew had just completed another mission. They saved a colony from pirates. No casualties. Everyone came home safe. Zekthar approached. He now held the rank of commander. Another successful operation, Captain. Your tactics continue to work perfectly. Jake smiled. Our tactics, Commander. You helped create half these strategies. Humanity did not change the galaxy alone. We did it together with friends like you. The Thraken made his clicking sound of pleasure. Perhaps that is the real lesson. Not that humans are special, but that every species brings unique strengths. Together we are greater than any of us could be separately. Jake looked at the stars through the viewport. That is exactly right, and it is a lesson we will keep teaching to everyone we meet. The ship moved through space, heading toward its next mission. Aboard were humans and aliens working side by side. They had learned that survival was not just about individual strength. It was about working together, adapting to challenges, and never giving up no matter how impossible things seemed. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by showing that intelligence, creativity, and determination could overcome any obstacle, by proving that the will to survive was the most powerful weapon of all. 10 years had passed since Jake, Amy, and Ben first arrived at Zenith 7. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Defender. It was one of the newest ships in the fleet, crewed by beings from 20 different species. All of them had trained under the modified program that incorporated human tactical philosophy. The mission today was routine patrol of the frontier sectors. But Jake had learned that routine could change to dangerous in seconds. Space was full of surprises, and not all of them were good. Commander Zekthar stood at his station monitoring sensor readings. The Thraken warrior had become one of Jake's closest friends over the years. They had saved each other's lives more times than either could count. "Captain, we are receiving a distress signal. A civilian transport is under attack by raiders. They are requesting immediate assistance." Jake did not hesitate. "Set course. Maximum speed. Sound general quarters." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Alarms sounded throughout the ship. Soldiers rushed to their battle stations. Weapon systems powered up. Within 2 minutes, the Defender was ready for combat. They arrived to find 3 raider ships attacking a defenseless transport. The transport's shields were failing. It would not survive much longer. The raiders outnumbered them and had heavier weapons. A decade ago, Jake would have seen this as a disadvantage. Now he saw it as an opportunity. "Zekthar, take tactical. Prepare surprise package alpha. Communications, jam their frequencies. Navigation, execute pattern Morrison 7. The crew knew exactly what to do. They had practiced these maneuvers hundreds of times. Pattern Morrison 7 was named after a tactic Jake developed that used the enemy's own aggression against them. The Defender approached the raiders at an angle that made it look vulnerable. The raider ships, seeing an easy target, immediately changed focus from the transport to the military vessel. They took the bait perfectly. As the raiders closed in, the Defender suddenly changed course. It led them on a chase through a nearby asteroid field. The raiders followed, confident in their numbers. But Jake was not running. He was setting a trap. The asteroids were positioned perfectly. Jake's navigation team guided the ship through gaps that looked impossible to cross. The raiders followed, but they were larger and less maneuverable. One by one, they collided with asteroids or got caught in gravitational fields. Within 10 minutes, all 3 raider ships were disabled. Not destroyed, but unable to fight. Jake did not believe in killing when he did not have to. The raiders would be arrested and sent to face justice. The transport sent a message of gratitude. Jake simply nodded to his crew. "Good work, everyone. That is how we do things. Minimal force, maximum effectiveness." Later that day, Jake received a message from Earth. It was from Amy. She was now the Surgeon General of the Galactic Medical Corps. Her innovations had saved countless lives. The message was brief but warm, asking how he was doing and reminding him to stay safe. Another message came from Ben. He had retired from active service and now ran the Special Operations Academy. He was training the next generation of tactical thinkers. His message included a joke about Jake getting old and soft. Jake smiled as he read both messages. They had come so far from those 3 scared recruits who arrived at Zenith 7 a decade ago. They had proven that humanity belonged among the stars, but more importantly, they had changed the entire galaxy's approach to military service. The old ways of relying only on strength and firepower were gone. Now every species learned to think creatively, to adapt, to value every life. That evening, Jake sat in his quarters writing his own report. He detailed the raider encounter and how his crew had handled it. He emphasized that the victory came from teamwork and smart thinking, not brute force. Zekthar knocked on his door and entered. The Thraken carried 2 glasses of a beverage they had discovered together on a distant world. It was one of the few drinks that both humans and Thraken could safely enjoy. "To another successful mission," Zekthar said, handing Jake a glass. They drank in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Zekthar spoke again. "Do you remember the first day we met, when you could barely last 4 seconds against me in combat training?" Jake laughed. "How could I forget? I was terrified. Everyone thought humans were too weak to belong here. Zekithar made his clicking sound. We were fools. We measured strength in the wrong way. Humans taught us that true strength is not about how hard you can hit. It is about how you think, how you adapt, how you never give up. Jake looked out his window at the stars. And you taught us that we are not alone, that working with other species makes us all stronger. It goes both ways. Back on Earth, humanity was thriving. The planet had become a hub of galactic activity. Aliens visited to learn human culture. Trade flourished. Earth's universities taught students from across the galaxy. Humans traveled to distant worlds, bringing their unique perspective wherever they went. The training program on Karvos 9 had expanded. Now there were multiple facilities across different planets. Each one taught the combined wisdom of dozens of species, with human tactical innovation at its core. Young recruits still heard the story of the first 3 humans. Jake Morrison, Amy Parker, and Ben Cole had become legends. Their names were spoken with respect across the galaxy. They were proof that determination could overcome any obstacle. A new generation of humans was entering the Galactic Defense Initiative. They no longer had to prove themselves the way Jake's generation did. Humanity's reputation was established, but they still carried the same spirit. The refusal to quit, the willingness to think differently, the commitment to bringing everyone home. Commander Velkoth had retired from active service. He now served on the Galactic Council, representing military interests. He often spoke about the day the humans arrived and how wrong his initial assessment had been. He used their story to teach important lessons about judging based on assumptions. One day, Jake received an invitation to speak at the main military academy. He was asked to address the graduating class and share his experiences. It would be the first time he returned to Zenith 7 since becoming a captain. Standing in front of hundreds of young recruits from every corner of the galaxy, Jake felt the weight of the moment. These beings would be the future defenders of their civilizations. What he said now mattered. When I first came here, I was told that humans were too weak to be soldiers. Our bodies broke too easily. We were too slow, too fragile. And you know what? They were right about our physical limitations. He paused, letting that sink in. But being weak in one way forced us to be strong in others. We learned to think, to adapt, to never give up even when everything seemed hopeless. And most importantly, we learned that we did not have to do it alone. He gestured to Zekthar, who stood at the side of the room. My closest friend is a Thraken warrior who could crush me with one hand. But he chooses not to. Instead, we work together. We combine his strengths with mine. Together, we are far more effective than either of us could be alone. Jake looked at each face in the audience. The lesson is simple. Do not focus on what you cannot do. Focus on what you can do. Use your unique abilities. Learn from others. Adapt to every situation, and never ever give up. That is how you survive. That is how you succeed. The room erupted in applause. Beings from 40 species stood and cheered. They had learned the human way. They had embraced the philosophy of survive or perish. After the ceremony, Jake walked through the corridors of Zenith 7. Everything looked the same as it did 10 years ago. But everything was different. The recruits he passed moved with confidence. They trained together regardless of species. They had learned what Jake's generation had fought so hard to prove. That night, Jake stood on the same observation deck where he had stood after his own graduation. He looked at the same stars. But now he understood something he had not known back then. The galaxy was big and full of challenges. There would always be threats, always be problems to solve. But humanity had proven it could face anything, not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being smart, adaptable, and determined. The training program that almost killed him had instead made him stronger. It had given humanity a place among the stars. It had created friendships that crossed species and changed an entire civilization's approach to warfare. Humans had survived. They had not just survived, they had thrived. And they would continue to do so, facing whatever challenges the universe threw at them. Because that was what humans did best. They survived. They adapted. They refused to give up. And in doing so, they made the entire galaxy stronger.